Hey everybody, it's Andy Kushner with the Wedding Biz, and this is a special bonus interview taking the place of a typical The Next Level episode. And before I introduce our guests, I want to mention that I've launched another show called The Music Makers, in which I interview some of the most influential music industry pros around, including artists and producers and songwriters, record industry executives, and more. You can find it by searching in your cell phone's podcast app for The Music Makers, Andy Kushner. If you put my name in there, it will help find it. Or on the internet at themusicmakers.com. Again, that's the Music Makers podcast. So, just last Monday on The Wedding Biz, I released my interview of Megan Ely, owner of OFD Consulting, an award-winning publicity agency that focuses on the wedding industry in the B2B market, and their client portfolio ranges from top-tier planners and venues to well-regarded national brands and industry thought leaders. So be sure to check out last Monday if you haven't heard it yet. So, today's bonus episode features a second appearance with Micaela Erlanger, celebrity stylist based out of New York City and LA. She is also a best-selling author of How to Accessorize a Perfect Finish to Every Outfit. Micaela was named one of the most powerful stylists by The Hollywood Reporter and has sustained that title for 5 years now, and honored with the Style Influencer Awards by the Accessories Council. Also, Micaela is a Marie Claire Image Maker Award winner. She has styled Constance Wu, Lupita Nyong'o, Common, Jennifer Hudson, Hilary Swank, Blake Lively, Shailene Woodley, and more. And somewhat recently, she styled Amanda Hurst for one of the most talked about celebrity weddings of 2019. Now, I wanted to bring her back for several reasons. One being that she herself is engaged and had to postpone her own wedding. And so she has quite a personal stake in what's going on with the pandemic. Micaela also talks about production timelines for wedding dresses and especially the changing trends that are now emerging as a result of the impact of the pandemic. She talks too about how her approach to styling brides is evolving and what planners need to know to help their brides during this difficult time. So enjoy my conversation with Micaela Erlanger. Hey, Micaela, so good to have you back on again. And you are in Miami, right now?
Yes, I am. Hi, Andy. It's great to be back. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I'm just so envious that you're in nice warm weather right now. You know, where I am in Maryland, it's just back and forth. It's cold, it's warm, it's cold, it's warm. Anyway, so, but I've been thinking about you and wondering how you're doing because I know that you are engaged and that you're really in the same position as any bride in terms of dealing with the pandemic. And haven't you had to postpone your own wedding?
Yes, actually, it's kind of wild to think about the fact that I'm in this predicament as I'm also advising my clients on what to do as they navigate this time. And so it's been very interesting. But after, some thought, it was a pretty easy decision to make. My fiance and I realized that most importantly was putting everyone's health and safety first. And so realizing that family and friends might not be able to travel or fly in for our wedding, which is, destination, but within the US, we realized that it made the most sense to look at postponing our dates. And this whole thing has just evolved. Every week it's something different. And to give ourselves a time and to alleviate the pressure, I think has been like a really good decision.
Well, first of all, when and where was it going to be originally?
It was supposed to be at Vizcaya Gardens in Miami, and that plan has not changed. It's still going to take place, and it will still all the vendors and all that good stuff, which we can chat about, is all still in motion. We're just looking at changing the date. However, we had originally planned to also do a ceremony and celebration in New York for those whom, we weren't going to have travel for our wedding. And we just made the decision to sort of combine the two and go all out and put our focus on the big celebration down south. So that's the plan.
And what was your original date?
It was supposed to be actually Halloween in October of 2020. And for many people, October seems like still like a safe time. However, without knowing what the travel restrictions and the social distancing rules are going to be, and having many friends and family that would be traveling from overseas, as well as throughout the country, we recognized the need to sort of rethink that date. So we're just going to postpone it to the spring of 2021, and I hope that it doesn't have to be moved past that. So here's to some wishful thinking.
Wow. Well, so how is this affecting, in terms of your dress? I believe, if I remember speaking to you before, you were going to have it made in Italy, and there's so many issues now with factories being closed and embroideries are not able to happen. It's not like, you had said this before talking to me, there's seamstresses are not doing it in their living rooms. I mean, so, all the brands are having to figure out how to handle it. How are you thinking about this with your own situation, your own dress?
So as a stylist, my wedding wardrobe was even more important and exciting for me, and probably one of like the biggest highlights and joys of the planning process, and definitely like a big focal point for me. And understandably so, the entire world has sort of come to a pause and a slower pace. And I, just like anybody else, have had to navigate this time as such. My wedding gown is being made by a brand that traditionally doesn't create wedding dresses. I can't disclose who it is, so you'll have to tune in and wait and see on the big day. But as a result, the timeline, I think, in some ways is thankfully more flexible. And also at this point, my dress was supposed to be far enough along for an October wedding. However, whether I'm talking personally or just generally speaking, I think the production timelines for designers and for brands across the board have been impacted because the ateliers are closed, because people aren't able to go into a workplace, because the mills and the factories where lace is produced or where embroideries are produced are, experiencing their own sort of shutdowns. Everybody is going through this. But the one thing that I have just been so impressed by is every single designer that I've spoken to, whether for myself or for my clients who I'm working with during this time as they navigate their own nuptials and planning or postponing and everything that goes along with it, every single designer seems to be able to make it work. And I think seeing the creativity that the brands have been able to show has been pretty remarkable. I mean, yes, perhaps the extensive embroidered dresses are going to require longer lead times now, understandably so. However, there are, depending on the brand and case by case, so many designers who are able to still produce their dresses and find ways to manage the demand and the needs. I have actually started an Instagram live series called Engage with Micaela, where I was just inviting my friends and the fashion designers and the experts in my world and in my community to come on to talk about bridal. And the one, constant in all of my conversations has been that the brands are prepared also to sort of ramp up and meet the demands and the needs for the brides that are placing orders. And so I started this Instagram live series called Engage with Micaela, really as an opportunity to sort of connect with my network of friends and designers and experts in the fashion space and talk to them about what they're doing during this time and how they will be servicing their clients. And it's been really cool. I've been doing one a day and the response has been amazing. And just about every bridal brand is still looking to sort of release collections and dresses. The timelines might be slightly shifted, but overall, it's been pretty incredible. Everyone is so resilient. I'm so impressed.
Well, what are some of the main issues that you're finding are coming up that you're talking about in your series?
There's been sort of the commonality between what to do if a bride has already purchased her dress and the seasonality of her date, has changed as a result of having to postpone. And so for me, I've been sort of talking about stylistically what you can do in order to make your wardrobe still work, and different tips and tricks and pieces of advice that one can incorporate and consider if they already have their wardrobe. And then kind of the other hand has mainly been talking about what the brands are doing and what the designers have in mind as they look to still service their clients and also look to fulfill what will be, I think, a very heavy demand come fall, winter. As I think something like 80% of weddings have been postponed. So there's going to be an incredible amount of dresses that need to be ordered and placed for those that have not. And then also the interesting topic that has come up is like what to wear to a Zoom wedding, or what's appropriate for a small sort of courthouse, civil ceremony, and the idea of having trans-seasonal pieces that really give your wardrobe much more longevity. And that brings up the topic of sustainability too. So it's really been an interesting dialogue. And I've talked with wedding dress designers, with evening wear designers, accessory designers, shoe designers, I mean, you name it. And it's been amazing to see how the industry is sort of weathering this storm.
So it sounds like, I mean, you talked about more trans-seasonal. It sounds like there are trends that are beginning to emerge as a result of this pandemic. Can you talk more about that?
Definitely. For me, they're quite exciting because I think it opens up a world of possibility for fashion and the way that you approach getting ready for your wedding day. And I think the one thing to remember is that bridal is inherently timeless. That is kind of a consistent message across the board. But what we're seeing now more of are styles and wardrobe choices that you will inevitably get more use out of. So as the idea of getting married on a Saturday or a Sunday is now understandably shifting to you'll get married on whatever day your venue has availability to accommodate your new date.
That's right.
It might be a Monday night. It might be a Thursday night. I happen to personally be looking at both Mondays and Thursdays.
Wow.
What do you wear then? And it's not to say that you can't wear, a perfect, classic, timeless white wedding dress, but you also might want to consider wearing something that you can wear again, or wearing color, or wearing a print. Also, we're seeing the trends of smaller ceremonies, and that as couples prepare to have larger celebrations at a later date. And so what do you wear for a smaller ceremony? Is it more relaxed? Is it happening in your backyard? Is it happening over Zoom? Are you going to wear a color? These types of conversations. And for me, that's kind of the beauty of event dressing. And as a celebrity stylist, as a red carpet stylist, that's something that has always rung true to me. And to sort of apply that to the world of bridal is really actually quite fun and exciting. And I think is a fresh way to approach your wedding wardrobe.
Yeah, it's interesting. You talk about the scale changing, with smaller parties and, therefore, how does fashion fit into this kind of an environment? And what about ready to wear? I believe we had a conversation earlier about that as well, that you're probably going to see more of that. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. And so when I was thinking about the creativity of the designers and the brands and how they're sort of looking to still service their clients, it was one topic of conversation that has come up pretty repeatedly with brands that also offer, just generally speaking, evening wear, or supplemental ready-to-wear collections. And so, if you look at Oscar de la Renta or Carolina Herrera, or even, younger new brands like Marc Harrion, they offer bridal collections, but they also offer, special occasion. And the idea that, okay, perhaps the lead time for your wedding dress might not align perfectly with what your dates are, you also have your pick of the litter from these ready-to-wear collections that, are produced in stock and inventory. They don't need to be made to order, and you can still find something fabulous and appropriate that you also might be able to wear and enjoy again. And so there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's also quite amazing. And then alternatively, a lot of these brands are also looking to produce some of their best-selling evening styles in new ranges of colors, whether that's white or ivory or softer colors and so forth, in order to be able to support like their bridal offering. And so I just think it's such a creative response to what for many, looks like a big problem. And, I think, again, that just goes to show how resilient and creative our industry is. And I think it also is indicative of the future of fashion and bridal.
Wasn't there already a trend emerging even before the pandemic of essentially being able to find and wear just something that you love, period?
Yeah.
That kind of the rules were all breaking down even beforehand. And now it's really happening now. It's exponential.
Definitely. I think we have sort of seen more of the fashion forward bride, and I think we have seen that idea evolve. I think we have seen the range of bridal designers just increase dramatically, as we've also seen more of a focus on Bridal Fashion Week and on bridal as a brand extension for many evening wear designers. But I think that at the core, what women want is to feel like the best version of themselves. And so, you might call it untraditional, but for me, I think if you feel fabulous in a, pink gown, why not go for it? And I also think that there is something, that is still equally timeless about it. You look at Audrey Hepburn, I'm thinking about like great, iconic wedding dresses of our time. You think of Audrey Hepburn, who was married several times, and she wore peach, and it was a peach mini dress to one of her weddings. And you think of Elizabeth Taylor, who wore, a soft yellow baby doll dress for, I think, her wedding to Richard Burton. And you think of even Sharon Tate. You think of some of these sort of iconic moments in time when brides weren't necessarily in some white Cinderella gown. And there's something just equally as cool and amazing and special about that if that's what makes you feel beautiful.
So clearly, obviously, this is affecting your approach to styling brides. Can you say more about that? How are you thinking of it? I mean, you've been telling us, in this conversation, but overall, this is really a dramatic shift for your own approach, isn't it?
It definitely is. I think going to allow me to tap more into sort of my red carpet stylist point of view.
Yeah.
Which is, fun for me. And I absolutely love what I do, whether it's on the red carpet or for brides walking down the aisle. But I'm actually working with a bride-to-be who, like many, is exploring the concept of having two ceremonies, one smaller and sooner, and then one larger at a later, safer date. And she wants to wear color for her second ceremony. And I absolutely love it. I think it becomes more of a celebration in the way that you get dressed. And while it might not be for everybody, I think at least it expands our idea and our concept about what you can wear on your wedding day. So yeah, it should be really fun. And I even think for myself, I'll give you a little bit of a hint, but originally with my own gown, I was going to wear white, but there was going to be some color in it because it's what spoke to me. And I think now as I sort of think about my own wardrobe, of course, I'm taking into consideration all the other factors that you should, your environment, your setting, the mood, your floral, your design, and so forth. But I think I'm even approaching my own personal style with more of an open mind and more levity towards the process.
So that's great. I mean, I love that. So it's been an opportunity in a sense.
Yeah. Absolutely.
In terms of the weddings that are not happening until next year, or even for the people who originally planned it in 2021, and now the ones that are being postponed later and later and later, the making of it all is going to be backlogged. Should people get on it? When should brides get on top of this? How far ahead of time?
Great question. And this is something I talk about a lot with my IG Live series, Engage with Micaela. My biggest recommendation is, of course, it varies brand to brand, but you want to get started on this as soon as you can and, as soon as you really know your date.
And what about for planners? Oftentimes, if a client is not able to afford a stylist, it's the planners who are having to step in and help out. What can you recommend that the planners think about? What do they need to know, especially in terms of what fashion designers are doing now, since now they have to take it upon themselves, the planners?
I have a few pieces of advice for this. So first of all, now is the time to really be doing research, whether that's tasking your bride to really narrow down her vision for what she wants to wear or what styles she thinks she's leaning towards, or if that's something that you're helping your bride navigate, to really use this time to edit your curation and your selection, and to be specific with either the designer that you're working with or the bridal boutique that you're working with, because it is going to be harder in terms of trying things on, whether it's shipping samples to allow your bride to try on, or getting your bride an appointment to try something on. All lead times are impacted. Secondly, generally speaking, brands have a 6 to 8 month period for ordering a dress. These lead times, like I said, vary brand to brand. So do your research. Pick up the phone, call the boutiques, sign up for those virtual consultations, and do your homework. I will say that I haven't heard any designer tell me that the lead time is longer than that. They are still anticipating the same lead times. However, there are key things such as embroidery or certain laces that might impact your timeline. And you definitely also want to inquire about rush fees. As far as I know to date, designers are pretty much waiving rush fees or being incredibly accommodating. And you also want to inquire to see what options currently exist without having to place a made to order. So if you have a bride who's getting married in, let's say, 3 or 4 months' time, and she wants to wear something that would traditionally be from made to order collection, you might want to see what your options are in terms of inventory, past styles, etc. I also think that October Bridal Week is going to be fully fleshed out with new designs and new options from brands. I already know that some designers, who missed April are looking to release new designs over the summer through June, July, August. But there will be more in October. So that is exciting and something to look forward to as well. And then don't be afraid of a Zoom fitting. I, as a celebrity stylist dressing some of the biggest stars in Hollywood, have done countless fittings over FaceTime, over Zoom, over Skype. In my line of work in, fashion and in the red carpet world, this is very common. And servicing my clients this way is totally standard. I mean, of course, it's always better to be in person. But when you can't be, the brands are very used to working in this capacity. And so just reassuring your bride that this is something that they can have faith in. This is a process that still works. Yes, it's less than ideal, but they should still have faith that, they will be able to service their client. The brands will be able to service the bride. And it is just as good. If Lupita and Meryl Streep can handle a FaceTime fitting, I assure every bride that they can too.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Before we close, is there anything else that I have not brought up that you would like to share with the listeners?
I think at the end of the day, the biggest message and takeaway from this that I've learned on a personal level is that the message of getting married is what rings true the most. It's that commitment and it's that celebration and it's that love. And that's what conquers all. And I think, in light of this time, just not losing sight of that and doing what you can to postpone and not cancel, and just understanding that you're changing a date, and that's really all that's happening here. The celebration will still be just as amazing. Your dress will still be just as amazing. And more than anything, your love and commitment, as a couple will still be just as strong. So that's my takeaway.
I love that you said that, Micaela, because I know from talking to some people directly myself, some people are just feeling so crushed, having to postpone. But I always like to, how else? I got to look at the positive side. What can I do to make it so that I feel better and even look at it as a blessing in disguise, perhaps?
Totally. I mean, don't get me wrong. I have mourned the loss of my planned wedding. I cried. I had a really good cry.
Yeah.
And I have felt those waves of emotion and disappointment. And I also have sort of put things into perspective, which is it's still going to happen. And it's going to be just as amazing when it does happen. It might be a little different, but it's going to be just as wonderful. And now I have the opportunity and gift of time. I'm using this time to plan things in even more detail than I probably would have considered before. So I think it's just about the attitude and your mindset as well.
Yeah, totally with you on that. And just the last question, in terms of the Instagram Live series that you're doing, are you doing this for the near future? I mean, how much longer do you think you'll be doing it? So people tune in?
That's a great question. I have gotten such an overwhelming response. It started off as just a fun way to connect with my community and to do some digging for my own, research and self-interest, if you will.
Yeah, sure.
But I have scheduled IG Lives through the end of June, and I think it's something that I will continue indefinitely. I don't really have an end date, and I think if I'm able to sort of bring my advice and guidance to brides in especially a time of need and thereafter, I certainly have every intention of fulfilling that. And I welcome any of our listeners who are interested in joining me to shoot me a DM. So
Is there a certain time of day that you're doing this each day?
Yes. So I am doing one IG Live a day, either at noon Eastern Standard Time or 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I am promoting it the day before, so you have plenty of notice to tune in to see who I'm going to be bringing on. I have some of the most famous hair and makeup professionals in Hollywood, nail artists, photographers, stationery designers, wedding planners, couture designers, creative directors, shoe designers, the list goes on, millinery hat makers and veil makers. I'm really bringing my community together, and it's something that I've taken a lot of joy in creating. So I hope you'll tune in.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, thanks for getting on the show again, Micaela. It's so great.
Thank you.
I'm going to put a link in the show notes to the interview that you did before, where we got your entire backstory and more. And I think people would really love hearing that and get a lot out of it. So we'll definitely have that as well. So thanks, Micaela. Amazing.
Thank you so much, Andy.
Thank you for listening to this special episode with Micaela Erlanger. Be sure to check out her site at micaelaerlanger.com. Her social media handle on Instagram is at Micaela, and on Facebook and Twitter, it is Micaela Erlanger. Of course, as usual, this is all in the show notes at your cell phone podcast app or on the website of theweddingbiz.com. And if you enjoyed this, which I'm sure you did, please share it with your friends and colleagues. It helps people find us. And finally, I want to thank the sponsor for today's episode, the new podcast, The Music Makers, brought to you by Kushner Entertainment. And we'll catch you next week on The Wedding Biz.